Okay, so strip down begins. Today what we'll do is we'll look at getting all of the intake manifold off, the lower intake manifold, all the injectors out. Might look at getting the sump off as well, and maybe even the timing cover. We'll just leave it as a pretty much a bare block, just a short block with the block, the heads on still, and obviously the crank and pistons in. If we get to it, I'll remove the rocker covers as well. Alright. Oh wow. Okay, so someone had a great idea of tightening that up super tight. Great. A lot of the stuff on this engine will go in the bin. Things like injector leads, I don't want them. They'll never ever get used. These things are just so cheap that you can buy new ones for stuff all. You know, I don't really want to use that on anything I own. It's just old junk. Alright. Even to an extent, this old harness, it's obviously no good, but I wouldn't mind keeping it for some of the plugs, especially these clips. These clips come in handy, especially when you're out in the bush. You need to access one or something and you flick it off and then they just fly off. Alright. So I'll leave all this intact. I'll basically just take it off in one piece. Intake manifold is held onto the lower intake manifold with these bolts in the top. Try to make everything as smooth as possible. However, something is going to sure to be holding me up. Alright. So Land Rover uses these special little clips here. They actually work really good. Kind of hard to get apart, but in here. The other rocker cover doesn't actually have this, but this is just a little oil separator, because this rocker cover is hooked up to the intake manifold. It's on the other side of the butterfly on the throttle body, so this is always under vacuum. However, this rocker cover goes in before the throttle body, so you've always got, well, it should basically be ambient air pressure, so that one doesn't actually have one in it. Right, so got that off. What else have we got? Another one of these funky little clips. Same with these hoses and stuff. I'll never end up using these. Even on my Discovery out the front, I've got aftermarket hoses on it because I put my own catch can in it. That'll come off. That'll all pop off. I might take these. They seem loose anyway. Yeah. I dare say that they took that out so they could get to the bell housing bolts when they split it. Alright. That one's not clipped on. That one is. These are these clips I was telling you about. They fly off. Okay. Okay, so that's off. So really we should be able to take this intake manifold off now. So these engines, a lot of the bolts and stuff in these engines, some are metric, some are imperial, they're just all over the shop. I can't really keep up with it, so a set of single hex sockets works a treat. Another one down here. What are you doing? Should be one more down in here. Okay. So as you can see, it's not too difficult to take the intake manifold off. There's only a few bolts holding it. So these here are your intake runners. So looking at this engine from this side, left hand side is your forward bank. It says cylinders 1, 3, 5 and 7, and 2, 4, 6 and 8. So we've got 1, 2 excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Doesn't actually look too dirty in there, which is probably a good thing. However, this has been apart before, so okay, we'll just go through, try and take most of this harness off. all these sensors and shit. I won't be using them again. What's up, Daisy? Oh, keep that out of the oil. Okay. Obviously these a V8 like this would have one injector per cylinder. It's port injection, so it's literally injected in the port. A lot of newer engines now are all direct injection. Alright, that's the harness. Go in there for now. Off you go. Okay, so as I was saying in the first video, this is your fuel rail, so it splits off into your two separate rails. There's no return, it's just a returnless system. This will sit at 40 pound of pressure, 40 psi fuel pressure with an in-tank regulator, so it's quite basic. So these standard injectors, these ones are made by Bosch. The whole fuel injection system on this engine and the whole engine, well, I should say engine management system, is all Bosch. So these little clips hold your injectors into your rail. Don't really need them. I upgraded the injectors on my engine in my current disco, and they didn't have positions for these injectors to go in. And actually looking at these ones, I don't think these ones do, so I'd say these aren't. Oh, yeah, they do have it, sorry. Alright. So as I was saying, there's no oil separator in that side. Not too fussed about all these bolts and stuff. Obviously try and keep them tidy if you're doing your own thing, but alright. So there are your injectors. Okay. play the game. So this here is your coolant outlet. Yeah, your coolant goes into the block from the water pump, circulates through the block, and then comes out through these outlets. This one going off to the heater. These have an O-ring on them and they're notorious for leaking, dropping coolant all over your belly cover. I guess we'll get that one out of the way as well. Might have to spin it. Judging by the looks of that little nest, it looks like this engine was sitting quite a while before I got it. The old sealant trick. Okay, coolant temp sensor can stay in, not too fussed about that. Yeah, we'll look at getting the lower intake manifold off now, which is held on with, so this back one, all they do is hold the valley cover down. The intake manifold bolts these ones here. So I'll pop them off and now, if you look at the procedure in the manual, it would probably tell you to do these in a special order. I know that the manual says to do them up in a special order, but I'm not too sure about disassembling it. However, considering I think this engine might be cactus, I'm not too stressed about it. Okay, Now, knowing how much sealant this person has used before, it's probably a bit sealanted down. There she goes. Yep. Okay, so the edge of it's just getting caught underneath the rocker covers. So what I'll do is I'll whip them off as well. Now these have got some special double hex bolts in them. That one looks like it's damaged. That's the size there. Hopefully we can get this without opening a can of worms. Looks like we have. Alright, so oh, what's that gone? Alright, so we're going to rocker cover off. Okay, so this here is your rocker shaft. These are obviously your rocker shaft retaining bolts. These here are your rockers. So you'd have an intake and exhaust one, obviously at each cylinder, and the push rods go down here, down into your valley, and your hydraulic lifters are down on the camshaft, down in the center of the valley. So the hydraulic lifter is designed to hold a certain amount of preload on these push rods. You should be able to spin them which is just what I'm testing now. It'll serve no purpose, however, I'm just curious. Alright, see if we can get this off. Let's open. Okay. So that's the lower intake manifold off. Bit of corrosion inside the block. Okay, so this here and this here, these are your coolant ports, and then these are your 4 intake ports. Now the heads are exactly the same. It's the same thing again. 2 coolant ports, 4 intake ports. If I flip this up, so your injector hole here injects straight out of the top of the intake manifold, out of the lower intake manifold, squirting fuel straight in. Okay, so we'll get the other rocker cover off. Obviously, if I wasn't stripping this completely down just for inspection, I'd be a little bit more caring about dirt. But seeing as this is all going to get stripped down anyway, then and inspected, then I'll clean it up in my Kero bath there. Wow. So it's another rocker cover off. Okay. So this is a one-time use gasket that serves as the intake manifold gasket as well as a valley cover. It's not, I don't think it's a great design. Okay, so now that we've got that off, in the center we can see the camshaft. Just going off a first glance, it looks like this engine has got really hot at some stage. The camshaft is not in very good condition at all. So I would say that it probably got very, very hot. Also running the engine on LPG, that could contribute to issues with the temperature as well. So anyway, now that we've got that done, we'll whip the sump off it, and then I think we'll probably leave it at that. So I've flipped it over. So the sump on these is a one-piece cast aluminium sump. The sump really has to come off before the timing cover. That there is where your engine oil filter would go on. Okay. Okay, so the sump on this engine actually acts as part of the it's where your bell housing bolts up to as well, I guess. It's not just a single, which also makes it quite difficult to reseal the sump. It can be kind of annoying because sump leaking on these is actually pretty common. So yeah, it's like the block and the sump both bolt up to the bell housing, so yeah. Okay, so inside the sump you've got a baffle plate. That plate's there to try and hold oil in the sump if your vehicle goes on a funny angle. Okay, so now this is your oil pump pickup. This obviously goes off to the front where your oil pump is in this housing. There's obviously your main bearings. These ones in here, your big end bearings. So you can see why one bank is offset to the other, because obviously the center line of the cylinder is different. So this would be conrod 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this rear part here, where the rear main seal goes in, you've got what's called a crucifix seal in here. These things are terrible. They go brittle and then they just start leaking. It's actually part of where your main bearing gets bolted down, and it can be a pain in the ass to get them to seal. Nevertheless, I think oil leaks, doesn't matter what you do to these engines, you're probably still going to have an oil leak. Alright, do my rag. So I'll whip this front timing cover off as well. here. So there we've got a if you look in here, there's, yeah, it doesn't look too healthy. This is a screen on the oil pump suction. Yeah. Bits of plastic, bits of gasket. Does look like there's a little bit of steel in there as well. Okay, so this here is your timing cover. That there, that is the oil pump inbuilt into the actual timing case. That there is obviously your sensor. That one there is your oil pump inlet, and the outlet is inbuilt into the housing. And then once that clean oil comes out, it comes out through this hole, through what would probably be those two. So those two holes there, so engine oil would go down both of those to lubricate everything. Okay, so that's your crank, obviously, crankshaft. That there's your timing chain. They always look slack like this, purely because you've always got a tight side and a loose side, because the crank is what pulls the camshaft around. So last time I cranked this over, I must have cranked it clockwise from where we're looking now, which is right. That is the direction that this engine turns. Should try not to crank the engine over backwards, purely because your timing will be that much out in the reverse direction. I don't know if you would hit a valve, but piston could probably hit a valve, but yeah, I wouldn't do it. Try to only go the one way. Okay, well, that's the first part of the strip down done. We'll see how I go. Hopefully next week I'll be able to whip the heads off. We'll have a look inside the cylinders. I haven't seen any massive issues that would say that this engine wouldn't run again, or at least get rebuilt. Haven't seen any issues yet, but there could still be dramas lurking. So yeah, in the next episode we'll whip the heads off, whip the cam out, obviously take all the valve train off, and possibly look at getting the crank out as well for inspection. If you like what you see, if you have any questions, just comment on the video and I'll try to answer them. I don't have a lot of experience doing this sort of thing. Most of the stuff I've ever done has been bigger. I'm a mechanic by trade, and you know, I think the best thing you can do with an old engine like this is just have a go. You can't really go wrong. It's pretty cheap on parts. Mechanical stuff It's usually pretty good. As long as everything's correct when it goes together, then it should be good. Thanks for watching.